Ray's still.
All right. Good evening and welcome. Today is Tuesday, October 19th, 2021, and welcome to Beaumont City Council closed session. I will start this meeting at 5 p.m. Nicole, can you do roll call, please?
Yes. Councilmember Santos?
Here.
Councilmember Fenn?
Here.
Councilmember Martinez?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem White?
Here.
Mayor Lara?
Here. This meeting will be open to the public and conducted in a virtual format to be inclusive of all participation preferences. Public comment participation is encouraged by emailing any comments to the city clerk's office or by calling in using the phone number provided on the front of the agenda. Nicole, do we have any comments either called in or emailed?
I have no written comments. Let me check who's on public comment this evening.
It's me, Nicole, and I have no callers on the line.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Pinckney, would you mind reading the items for discussion in closed session, please?
Yes, the council will meet in closed session. Item number 1 is conference with legal counsel regarding potential litigation or initiation of litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D4, one potential case. The second item is conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. The city designated representatives are the city manager, Todd Parton, and Administrative Services Director, Carrie Mendoza. The employee organizations are the Beaumont Police Officers Association and the SEIU. The third item is conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1 and/or 2 and/or 3, and this relates to workers' compensation case number COBM 0113, C0BM 0082, and C0BM 0087.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pinckney. And with that, we will adjourn to closed session. I'll go ahead and call the regular session to order at 6:17. Mr. Pini, can you please report out from closed session?
Yes, the council met in closed session on 3 items. Item number 1 was conference with legal counsel regarding potential initiation of litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D4, one potential case. There was no reportable action. The second item was conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. City designated representatives, City Manager Todd Parton, and Administrative Services Director Carrie Mendoza, the employee organizations, the Beaumont Police Officers Association, and the SEIU. There was no reportable action. And the third item was conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1 and/or 2 and/or 3, workers' compensation case number COBM 0113 0082 0087, no reportable action. And that concludes the report out.
Thank you, Mr. Pinckney. Nicole, can we please have roll call?
Councilmember Santos?
Here.
Councilmember Fenn?
Here.
Councilmember Martinez?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem White?
Here.
Mayor Lara?
Here. Will you all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pastor Barrett, for the invocation this evening.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we come to you and ask for help. Some have forgotten that there is a God above who has made us all. But we confess that we want your help and need your help. Give wisdom, we pray, to our council, to our mayor, the council members. Lord, may we work together with wisdom, with prudence. May we not be selfish or proud, but may we humbly serve your people. We thank you, Lord, for some good decisions that have been made and for new roads and rebuilt roads throughout our city. We thank you for the peace that we enjoy. God, you know there may be some rocky roads ahead for our city. There may be some difficult times ahead for our state. We pray, Lord, for your mercy and that we would act with wisdom and prudence tonight. You, O God, who created every star in the universe, billions times billions of stars, and have called each of them by name. We come to you and ask for wisdom to guide the business of the city, of our businesses and our families and our schools and our parks. Help us to operate with truth, to operate, Lord, with wisdom. Guide our council, guide our city. We pray for your blessing. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. Okay, and that brings us to announcements and recognition, and I have a proclamation for National Code Compliance Month. Whereas the code enforcement officers provide for safety and welfare of the citizens throughout the United States through the enforcement of local codes or ordinances facing various issues of building and zoning, housing, animal control, environmental, health, and life safety. And whereas code enforcement officers often have a challenging and demanding role and often do not receive recognition for the job that they do in improving living and working conditions for residents and businesses of local communities. And whereas the role of many code enforcement officers has expanded in recent years with the increased number of foreclosed and abandoned homes in communities impacted economically. And whereas code enforcement officers are dedicated and high qualified professionals who share the goals of preventing neighborhood deterioration, enhancing and ensuring safety, and preserving property values through knowledge and application of housing, zoning, and nuisance codes and ordinances. And whereas code enforcement officers have a highly visible role in the communities they serve and regularly interact with a variety of state officials, county officials, first responders, legislative boards, commissions, agencies, and bodies. And whereas code enforcement officers are called upon to provide quality customer service and excellence to the residents and businesses of the communities in which they serve. And whereas the American Association of Code Enforcement wants to recognize and honor code enforcement officers and professionals all across the United States and bring awareness to the importance of code enforcement and to the communities of the United States. And whereas the American Association of Code Enforcement was established in 1988 for the purpose of providing ongoing training and support for code enforcement professionals working in the United States, and now therefore be proclaimed the month of October 2021 as National Code Compliance Month, and call upon municipalities and communities to join in recognizing and expressing their appreciation for the dedication and service by the individuals who serve as our code enforcement officers. And we thank those officers for the jobs that they do day in and day out. It is not an easy one. Was once an officer back in my youth, and it is a difficult task, even on good days. So we thank them for that. All right. Nicole, do we have any other announcements or recognitions today?
No, sir.
Okay. That brings us to our public comment period for items not on the agenda. This meeting will be open to the public and conducted in a virtual format to be inclusive of all participation preferences. Public comment participation is encouraged by emailing any comments to the city clerk's office or by calling in using the phone number provided on the front of the agenda. Anyone in person wishing to speak can do so by filling out a form at the back of the room and handing it to a staff member. Nicole, do we have any public comments?
I have no requests. Carrie, do we have anyone on the line?
No callers on the line, Nicole.
Okay, thank you. And that will bring us to the consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar are taken as one action item unless an item is pulled for further discussion. Here and at, I'm sorry. Where are we? Here and at the end of action items. Approval of all ordinances and resolutions to be read by title only. Do we have any items council wishes to pull from the consent calendar, or do I have a motion?
If there's no pull-out of the items in here, I'd like to do move a motion to approve the consent calendar from item 2 through 8.
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem White?
Yes.
Mayor Lara?
Yes. That brings us to public hearing, item 9, considering adopting a resolution updating the transportation uniform mitigation fee schedule. Staff report by Mr. Jeff Hart.
Hi, good evening, Mayor, City Council. Yeah, so back in May of 2020, City Council adopted a resolution implementing a phased construction cost index rate increase to the TUMP fees. The last of these phased increases were implemented in January 1 of this year. These fee increases were consistent with the priorities in the 2016 Nexus study as well as the administrative plan. In July of this year, the Western Riverside Council of Governments Executive Committee approved another construction cost index adjustment to the TUMP schedule to help ease increased construction costs. Information provided by the Public Works Committee indicates that project costs continue to escalate, which is forcing agencies to find additional funding for transportation projects. Beaumont Municipal Code provides a legal base for a revised TUMP schedule, which is actually implemented by the establishment of your attached resolution. In summary, the fees will adjust. So the current fees for single-family residential are $9,800.10 per unit, and they will be increasing to $10,104 as of January 1, 2022. Multifamily is currently at $6,389 per unit and will go to $6,580. Industrial is currently at $1.81 per square foot and is going to increase to $1.86. Retail commercial, which has been at a lock for several years, is going from $7.50 per square foot to $7.72, excuse me. Service commercial will increase from $4.75 per square foot to $4.89. And lastly, Class A and B office, which are professional offices, will increase from $2.38 per square foot to $2.45. With that, it's recommended that the City Council hold a public hearing and waive the full reading and adopt by title only a resolution of the City Council of the City of Beaumont amending the transportation uniform mitigation fee. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hart. So with that, I will open the public hearing at 6:28. Nicole, do we have any public comment on this item?
I have no requests. Carrie, do we have anyone on the line?
No callers on the line, Nicole.
Okay. So with that, I will close the public hearing at 6:28. I'll open it up for council comments at this time. Or a motion, or, excuse me. Council discussion, oh yeah, are we gonna have a motion?
Mayor, I'll make a motion if we have no discussion.
Yeah. Does not appear as anybody has a question, thank you.
Okay, then I'll make a motion to waive the full reading and adopt by title only a resolution of the City of Council of the City of Beaumont amending the Transportation Uniform Mitigation Fee, TUMF, ordinance of 2017, TUMF, under Beaumont Municipal Code Section 3.39.040.A and 3.39.040C, applicable to all developments in the City of Beaumont.
I'll second.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem White?
Yes.
Mayor Lara?
Yes. That brings us to action items. Item 10, proposed Eagle Scout project at the Albert A. Chatney Center, Community Recreation Center. Staff report by Mr. Doug Story.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have before you today a staff report for a proposed Eagle Scout project. Justin Vasquez is a member of our community and a member of Boy Scout Troop 322, and he is in the process of applying to become an Eagle Scout, a great honor and something he's been working very hard at for a very long time. As part of that process, he needs to provide a project for the community that is for the community benefit. And what he is proposing for us today is that he would like to add a flag retirement box. He would like it to be placed outside the CRC up at our Chatney Center. And this would be a box where the community can come and they could place old or worn or damaged flags in that box. And then the Boy Scout troop on a monthly basis will come and remove those flags, and then they will perform a retirement ceremony for those flags to ensure that those flags are retired correctly. This is going to have no cost to us as a city or as staff. It'll be installed and provided by Justin, who's been doing some fundraising as he prepares in this process. And it'll be something that'll be open and accessible for the entire public. And we wanted to bring this as part of this process for Justin, as he's been meeting with staff, myself and some of my staff in placing it and designing it and all those types of things. And we wanted to come bring it before you for approval here tonight. The box is going to look real similar to about the size of a normal mailbox that you would see outside the post office, one of those blue mailboxes. It'll be painted a little different color, but it'll have a plaque on it as well explaining why it's important to retire the flags this way. So we believe this will be a nice thing for the community and something that'll benefit everybody in the community. If you guys have any questions in regards to the project, I can answer those at this time.
Thank you very much for the report. Nicole, do we have any public comments on this item?
I have no requests. Carrie, do we have anyone on the line?
No callers on the line.
I'll open it up for a council discussion.
Mr. Mayor, a couple
Yes, sir.
questions.
Councilmember Finn.
Yes, one, I wanted to thank Justin for bringing this to the city. I served as a Boy Scout many years ago, and also served as a leader, and I've even helped approve Eagle projects in the past and so forth. So without seeing a signature on here, Is the process to get the approval from the city first and then take it to the scout troop and so forth and the board to get
Correct.
the approval there? Okay.
Correct. So what my goal would be is once Justin finishes that part of that process and becomes an official Eagle Scout, once everything is done, I'd like to bring him back and maybe do a proclamation from you guys or just something to thank him and kind of celebrate his real hard work and getting this process done. But yes, correct, Councilmember Finn, that's where we are in that process right now.
All right, that'd be great. That'd be great to see him here. Now, just thinking worst case in the future, because I've seen a lot of changes with the Boy Scout program.
Sure.
Because they've been struggling with membership and so forth. Should his troop be dissolved in the future, is there a contingency plan with the city or perhaps local VFW or somebody to take over those responsibilities in the future?
Correct, and that's what we would intend to do is probably reach out to the VFW, which is one of the ways that we currently deal with any of our flags that are torn or damaged right now as we go through that process with them. So that would probably be our natural connection and our natural response if something were to happen to Boy Scout Troop 322. But right now there is a member of Boy Scout Troop 322 who is going to take over the monthly duties of checking the box and doing this process.
And are they part of the local Grayback Council out of Redlands? Do we know that?
Yes, they
I
are.
don't know
Okay.
that. I don't know
All
if
right.
that's what they're part of.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem White answered my question on that and said they were. Okay, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Finn. I have one question. Looking through the report that Justin put together, it looks like maybe one of the things he may have an issue with could be the plaque, the engraving on the plaque. Can you find out from him, because I don't know the requirements or what, if he has to do that by hand, but if he doesn't, I would like to help with that. If we can't get like maybe a trophy place to do that plaque for this.
Sure,
item.
and I know since he's even turned in this initial proposal to me, he's had some pretty good success in getting some funding and some support from the community for the box itself. I believe the plaque is also covered as well the last time I spoke to him since turning in this report that he typed up. I believe he's okay, but if not, I'll make sure to put him in contact
Yep,
with
let me know,
someone.
please. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions or do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor?
Sir.
I move that we approve the Eagle Scout project proposed by Scout Justin Vasquez to install a flag retirement box at the Albert A. Chatney Senior Community Recreation Center.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Santos,
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem White,
Yes.
Mayor Lara.
Yes. That brings us to action item 11. Resolution to rescind Resolution 2021-48, a joint resolution of the cities of Banning, Beaumont, and Calamesa, and the Morongo Band of Mission Indians to develop a comprehensive multimodal strategic plan for the Interstate Highway 10 corridor. Staff report by Mr. Todd Parton.
Thank you, Mayor. So in previous city council action, city council had approved resolution number 2021-48. That was drafted as a joint resolution, which would have included the cities of Calamesa, Banning, Beaumont, as well as the Morongo Band of Mission Indians. It included a provision for working together to develop an I-10 corridor transportation analysis and really looking at an active transportation program. So it would look at everything from surface transportation through transit and as well as pedestrian connection and other kind of active connections and linkages. That outline in the resolution was really developed over about a year-long process in talking with the mayors, particularly, as well as with the supervisor's office. So I think when Councilmember Santos was mayor, actually back in pre-COVID, was that just barely pre-COVID? We actually had sat down and originally talked about a concept and had moved forward with the process from there. Ultimately, a decision was made, and I think a direction provided back to Mayor Laura that the desire of Banning and Calamesa with regard to how to approach this project they would prefer to approach us in a different manner. And particularly looking at the county taking a lead to try to develop a cooperative outline and effort moving forward instead of a resolution, looking at an MOU, some things like that. Also not necessarily looking at the project outline that we had developed over the past year or so in that process. So there is a letter from Mayor Bill Davis to Mayor Laura that's included in the staff report, which outlines their position. There is a stated desire to try to continue to work together to develop a concept of working together to address our corridor needs. But again, preference is that the county take the lead on that, and we all participate, I guess, as will be deemed appropriate moving forward. Mayor Laura did provide a response back to Mayor Davis. A copy of that email correspondence is also included. The response from that time was really based on the fact that received the letter, there was a desire to go a different direction, but there was a request to participate on an oversight committee, which the formation was really tied back to the resolution. So there really wasn't a basis for that oversight committee. So considering that it was a significant deviation from what we had established, what we had presented to Banning and had been approved by Banning, and to the Morongo Band of Mission Indians, which had been approved by them, as well as the city council, needed to come back and circle back and see where our agencies were before we decided to try to move forward with an oversight or some other process. So the recommendation here, since we no longer have participation from the other communities, would be to approve this resolution to rescind resolution number 2021-48 and to be ready to participate should the discussion come our way on this effort in the future. So concludes my report for council.
Thank you very much, Mr. Parton. Nicole, do we have any public comment on this item?
I have no requests. Carrie, do we have anyone on the line?
No callers on the line.
And so with that, I will go ahead and open it up for council discussion.
Mr. Mayor? I have
Councilmember Finn.
Yes, thank you. I have a couple questions. So, being the new guy on the block, and I'll probably use that till year 4.
But honesty.
Were there any attempts to reach out to San Jacinto and Hemet on this? And the reason for it is it wasn't too long ago, just a couple weeks ago, I was traveling westbound on the 10 in the right-hand lane, approaching Beaumont Avenue, and it was quite dangerous. There was traffic backed up well onto the freeway. And with San Jacinto and Hemet being kind of landlocked and not having a freeway that runs through it, I would think that they would benefit and support a regional effort with that 10 corridor as well. I know we have some other neighbors, Marina Valley, that's the 60 corridor. We've got Yucaipa that's kind of just out of reach a little bit. Have we thought big enough on this? And do we think that by doing so, that would help maybe rally the troops back together and maybe we can come up with something that works? I don't know that they've just shunned our idea and don't want to cooperate, or if they just feel that they have a better approach. And I also have concerns, and not out of expertise or willpower or anything, but is it at the county level, is that high enough, or do we need to reach out to Assemblyman Mays, Senator Bogue, or even Senator Dr. Ruiz for a larger effort with this? And so, not having been here and seeing what those discussions were in the past, I don't know if that bigger group effort was made.
Well, the whole concept really was a genesis of regional transportation planning grant opportunities that were out there. And so Caltrans and SCAG have some specific planning grant dollars, but they're regional planning, so they need to be multiple jurisdictional planning. So as we've wrestled with how to coordinate and transportation needs and to mitigate impacts along our corridor here, the idea was to reach out to our immediate neighbors, because everybody's got projects that they're planning on. They're all interrelated. So what happens, for Morongo affects us. What happens in Calamesa affects us. If one project gets funded, that just means there's more dollars to help address other projects that are there. Because the whole system has to work together to really make it happen. So that really was the concept and what the conversations were centered around. So I don't construe this as a desire to say we don't want to work with Beaumont or we don't want to work together. I think it is what is the right vehicle to do this, specific to the pass area. And as you'll see in the letter, it was, we think an MOU ought to be done. We didn't propose an MOU because an MOU really is project specific. You have to know what are the specific things we're working on, what are the specific roles, what are the specific objectives that are there. This is more kind of global in nature. But it also created in our minds the opportunity to reach out to our electeds at the state as well as the federal level. Because when you talk to RCTC and you talk to our state representatives, they always say, what is it that your area needs? What is a priority for the pass area? And particularly RCTC, when you talk to them about project needs, that's a critical point. So the idea was, say, an official statement, we're working together, we have a process that's there, and an intention to ensure that everybody has an equal seat at the table. So if you're participating, we have an oversight group, everybody's sitting at the table, nobody outvotes the other, has more seats at the table than the other. And the idea was we want to go after grants, fund a scientific, engineer-based analysis that takes a data-driven approach to what our transportation priorities are and how to implement those to achieve the most effect and the most benefit in the shortest time possible. If you look at our programming that we have, then and the way that we prioritize projects through regional transportation planning, things like that, those aren't necessarily based on an engineering analysis, and they're not necessarily looking at a strategic plan that goes back to strategizing how to make the best impact within the system for the overall benefit of the system. And so for our area, one of the things that we had hoped to do and what we had presented in the conversations was to say, hey, this also allows us to put that scientific basis behind it. So when we go present the pass area transportation piece that fits into the SCAG mobility plan and into the RCTC mobility plan, that we're working together, we understand what that is going to be, and we're making system improvements that's going to benefit the pass, number one. And if we get a direct benefit, great. If we don't, great, because our citizens don't care what city that traffic jam exists in. They just want to get home, and they just want to get to work, and they just want to enjoy their families. So that was the concept of it. If you look at the SCAG mobility plan, it has identified corridors throughout all areas of the Southern California area. And particularly within our area of Riverside County, there's linkages that are needed between Beaumont all the way down to Temecula. And it looks at the 79 corridor, it looks at various realignments and roadway sections for 79, for example. And so it identifies the issues, it creates a schematic layout for how to address that, and then it has some implementation objectives or some objectives on some things that need to be done to address that corridor. So there's already some core planning documents that show where those regional connections are needed, and they address connections from Yucaipa, all the way through to Palm Springs, from Beaumont all the way down to Temecula, and they address all those main corridors. It looks at 60, it looks at 10, it looks at 79 particularly. So there's already a basis of some schematic drawings and some concepts that have already been established that certainly, I think, create a platform for us to open up conversations and reach out to some of our other partners and look at how we can work together to develop some of those linkages. And, we could still come together and look at some of those regional planning applications, and we can still try to pursue that if that's what council wants us to do.
Okay, because the perception I don't want to have out there was if we rescind this, just to say, we threw our hands up and say, forget y'all, and so forth, that, there'd be some kind of plan or alternate that we can come back and, the hand's still reaching across the table to work something out.
We'll continue to do that. If I can too, I will touch, I did share the plan with Assemblyman Mays. I also shared the plan with Senator Bogue. Getting ready to share the plan with Dr. Ruiz before the change in direction had taken place. So we've got it out there. Assemblyman Mays had some good headway with CBAG. Was interested in taking a look at it as well. So I put it out there, and we were moving on it, and we'll continue to do what we can for the area, for the pass area, and the residents of Beaumont.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem White.
So the purpose, I think the goal we were looking at was to create a coalition of our regional neighbors so that we could apply for grants. Are there any grants that we could, if we had been moving on this a little bit quicker, that we have now missed and cannot apply for as a city that we could have possibly applied for as a region?
Well, our original effort was, or timeline was to really have all this wrapped up by September, assuming that we had an October or November deadline to apply for the Caltrans Regional Planning Grant, in addition to the SCAG Regional Planning Grant. So the objective was to try to get to SCAG first. That grant application is an October application deadline, so we're not going to make that. The Caltrans grant program was not funded in this last allocation cycle, so we hope that that grant application comes back around, for next year. So the one primary grant we wanted to try to pursue through SCAG opportunities passed us by this year.
That's disappointing. And I'll be perfectly blunt with you guys here. This is a real nice letter coming from Mayor Davis, but it is not the real reason why we're rescinding this tonight. Being on council now for 7 years, early on you heard a lot about how our neighbors don't trust us and that Beaumont's stealing from everyone. And even 4 or 5 years after that, after we started to clean house, we continue to hear, or I continued as mayor to hear from our neighbors that they don't trust us. And I believe that is what the comments that were made at the last mayor's breakfast was, that they don't trust Beaumont, and Beaumont wants to get credit for this. And I think that their approach, I don't think it's in the staff agreement here or staff here, but they've already moved forward with letting our supervisor's office take the lead on this and start developing a plan. Well, he's had at least a couple of years since we've been talking about it. And, the county has continued to overlook and neglect the pass area as far as transportation. I do have some good news in my council member report about something coming down from RCTC. But I think if we continue to move forward with the county taking the lead on this, it's going to get bogged down in the politics. They don't have the resources that the cities could have put together for the grant writing. And I just think it's a real disappointment. And I agree with you. We don't want to throw our hands up. We need to move forward on this. And I think the idea of reaching out to other partners is important. But I still don't know how we don't get what we need. Highland Springs, all of the other projects that are in Banning and that are in Calamesa that impact us all. Calamesa now has the new shopping center over off of Cherry Valley, and the traffic out there is horrendous. And it would be a project that I'm sure the city of Beaumont would have been more than happy to support and put on top of the list. And I just, I think at some point, I personally, and I know that others who've been on council for a while have done everything we can to reach out and try and solve solutions and provide support to our neighbors. And for them to continue to argue that they don't trust us and that we're just out to get credit for everything, it's just very disappointing. And I think we should move forward. I'd also like to look at possible regional cooperations with our water district and our water agency. I think with our plant coming online with the recycled water, that's an opportunity for us to work to start working with the neighbors who want to work with us. And those who don't, that's their choice. And, as long as their citizens understand that we are trying to solve the problems that are happening on Highland Springs and Cherry Valley, which is the two east and west of our cities, and that we can't do it alone. So for so many years, our neighbors have argued that we're trying to do everything alone. And the one time we try to reach out, and this has been a 2-year process. It started with Ray Santos, and I think even before then, I think even early back then, Mr. Hewitt, Supervisor Hewitt, had said that he would support this effort. And it's been 2 years later, and there hasn't been much coming from his office except for now. I believe that they were supportive of our neighbors wanting to take this out of the hands of the cities and put it into the hands of the county. And the county has not done Beaumont any favors in quite some time. So I would like to go along with what you were saying, Mr. Finn, and I think that we should broaden our sources. I think you brought up CVAG, and I know that every time in an RCTC meeting, whenever projects for the past, like the 60 Badlands, they are very interested in getting the pass traffic flowing because people are going and spending money in their cities.
Right.
So I think there's an opportunity to reach out to other cities, and if Banning and Calamesa want to come back and come around, I'm open to that. It's just at some point you got to say, look, we've tried everything we can and we have to move forward. So I agree with you. We should not throw our hands up and say, forget this. We need to move forward because we need it. The whole pass needs it, not just Beaumont. So I'll get off my
Okay. Thank you for your comments.
soapbox there.
Mayor, just a quick comment on this. I will echo on Mayor Pro Tem Lloyd White, and also especially on our city manager Todd Pardon here. He put a lot of time, and the council. I would say during that time last year, we worked hard on this to put it together, and I was surprised and shocked actually when I learned about this. And I know Banning and Calamesa wants to work with us, and all of a sudden they changing their heart. I heard about so much about we're taking advantage of them, or they're using them, and they knew that we're not. We're working as a team on this, and I expressed that to them, and hopefully we will go forward, but still we have to reach out to them so things will be better, especially this coming September and October till the end of this year. The administration, federal, they have a $6.2 billion on the allocation on this, and I would like to them also to be aware that if we don't access on this allocation, this will go somewhere else, and I think we have to work hard, not only ourselves. Since I'm sitting on the council in here, I always reach out to them. Even I reach out to San Jacinto, to Hammett, and they're good on the plan we have with our city manager. My point is, we have to still plan it, and the city of Beaumont, and we're working towards our city, but on the benefits of our neighbors. So they have to understand that. Whatever they do, it reflects on us, on both neighbors we have in here. And, Cabazon do understand how we feel about it. And then because whatever we do, as I said, it benefits them. So my point is, don't lose this opportunity on the grant that we will have, not only, only this year, next year, up to 2025, there's a allocation fund for our pass area. So I hope, they will not blindly or other directions. Hopefully, we will still continue and let them work with us on this, and we will work with them, Mayor. That's all I could say, and thank you so much for this.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yeah, just real quickly, our neighbors got it wrong. Mr. Davis's comments of bringing in the supervisor or the county is just another layer of the bureaucracy that's, a big brother approach. This was an opportunity that we had to finally sit down as cities, develop a regional voice, talk about what we need. Each city has a rep on RCTC and RTA. So what a great opportunity to have a regional voice go in and talk about issues. And I think the direction has been changed now. We had support from some cities, and now we don't all of a sudden. So obviously there's some external influences going on. And now I'm concerned about what the approach and goal is from those neighboring cities. So, I echo, we're going to keep going forward. We're going to do what's in the best interest, not just for our city, but for our region, because we're not going to hold ill of that. That's not what we do, and that's not who we are. But I just want to show that I am disappointed in their direction. I think they got it wrong, and, I'm very interested to see what and how they're going to come up with the corridor goals and so forth. And especially if we're going to start having external factors come in for influence, basically the county, I think that's a wrong approach. I think it should have stayed at the city level, talk with amongst city people, and developed our ideas and goals that way. So it's unfortunate, but again, we are who we are, and we hold our head high. We're going to go forward and keep everyone's interest, and we're not going to hold ill of that, but it's just a disappointing event. So, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Martinez. I agree. I must say, it was extremely disappointing. We had really come quite a ways before this had all kind of fallen apart. We'd been working on this since, I was granted permission by council to move this forward and basically pick the ball up and run with it. Just so that council is aware, I did do everything in my power to make sure that copies were shared with staff with our neighboring cities multiple times, meeting with folks in person. Resolution was shared multiple times. We were able to reach out to Morongo Mission Band of Indians as well, met with them, shared the same plan. So everybody had opportunities to comment. If there was a concern, it was clear that any concern or change in direction or additions to the plan was more than welcome. The only group that provided comments was the Morongo Band of Mission Indians, after only having the plan for a short time in the resolution. And those changes were made very quickly by staff here and turned around and returned back. So it wasn't for the lack of trying. Again, very disappointed, and we basically, as city manager mentioned, we're going to miss another grant opportunity because we're starting back at zero. I will take the input council's provided this evening and continue to press forward. And I think it's obvious to me that we all understand that the pass, not only just the pass now, but the region is really critical as far as transportation and traffic movement. I believe that plan looked at all our transportation options, and so we will continue to move forward in cooperation with our neighbors if they're willing to. I'll do whatever I can to continue to work with the county as well. But we will also continue to move and make sure that we benefit the pass in the region as best as we can. So I appreciate the comments.
Yeah,
Councilmember.
Mr. Mayor, has any representative or Supervisor Hewitt himself reached out to you about a proposed plan and how they plan to tackle this or an approach they're going to make? Are they going to invite us to the table for input? Have you heard anything?
Yes, Chief of Staff reached out to me, requested a copy of the plan, so they could take a look at it. He has since reviewed it, thought that the plan was very detailed. I also provided him a copy of the resolution. He thought that that was a good vehicle, and that was the last I've heard. So I'll keep council posted as things move forward.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. So with that, I will go ahead and make the motion to waive the full reading, adopt by title only, Council Resolution, City of Beaumont, California, rescinding Resolution 21-48.
I'll second.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem White?
Yes.
Mayor Lara?
Yes. And that brings us to action item 12, fiscal year 2021-2022 Development Impact Mitigation Fee Program adjustments pursuant to Ordinance 1087, 1092, 1095, and Resolution 2017-23. Staff report by Mr. Hart.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and Council, once again, thank you. Yeah, this is your annual update to the Development Impact Fee adjustment, which will be implemented on January 1, 2022. A little background, so back in 2017, the council approved an amendment to the sewer capacity fee. They approved an establishment of the local transportation facility mitigation fee program and the establishment of the 2017 Development Impact Fee Mitigation Program. Development Impact Mitigation Fee Program is intended to appropriately apportion cost of improvements needed to successfully mitigate the impact of development. Local infrastructure, parks, recreation, police, fire, and civic facilities that are crucial to provide a high level of service for the safety of the residents and the people working in the city of Beaumont. Excuse me. In order to fund the projected cost of the construction now and in the future, previously approved ordinances provide for annual adjustments to these fees to keep pace with industry costs. These adjustments are to occur at the same rate that the building and material costs change, and these fees can be either adjusted upward or downward, and downward as we saw last year, kind of in reaction to the pandemic. The rate of adjustment is calculated on the basis of change to the appropriate cost index, which are the building cost index, the construction cost index, and the consumer price index. Excuse me. The construction cost index, or the CCI, has increased at 8.07%, and the fees that are related to that are the traffic signal impact fees, railroad crossing, local streets and bridges, community parks, and neighborhood parks. The building construction index fee has increased 15% over the last year and will impact the fees for recreational facilities, fire station, police, and public facilities. And the consumer price index, which is relative to the sewer capacity fee and or connection fee, increased to 6.5%. Excuse me, the details of the adjustments, including the current fee, the fee adjustments, the percentage change, as well as some of the historic changes that have occurred since 2018 and on, are attached in the appendix of your staff report. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. This is a receive and file, but I would be happy to answer questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hart. Do we have any public comments on this, Nicole?
I have no requests. Carrie, do we have anyone on the line?
No callers on the line, Nicole.
Okay, so with that, I will open it up for council's comments.
Mayor, I'll move to approve the receive and file.
I'll second.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem White?
Yes.
Mayor Lara?
Yes. That brings us to action item 13, City Council approval of change order number 21 for the wastewater treatment plant upgrade expansion in the amount not to exceed $213,164.76 for plant improvements. Staff report by Mr. Thaxton Van Bell.
Good evening. Yes, this is change order number 21. It's a package of 8 items. I'll run through the list briefly, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. So item number one involves, it's got some of the back history here, but essentially is the additional requirements from Beaumont Cherry Valley Water District to install additional valves and backflow prevention devices to the city's tie-in to their potable system. Number two was to upgrade the existing monitoring equipment at the facility. It was important for us to be able to monitor the performance of the new equipment and have the same generation equipment such as NTU meters, samplers, et cetera, so we could compare apples to apples with what we were getting with the new system inside the building. We wanted to make sure everything matched for the final compliance point. Number three, some in-yard piping. We think it better to make a loop there that sustains the pressure better, and then if you have to isolate any one leg, anything downstream of it would have been dead. By doing a loop and a couple valves, you can isolate a piece of equipment and still have water feed going around it. Number four is the in-plant work for the pressure washer system that we're putting on the fine screens. Number five involves providing a seal water system to our RAS pumps. We found that this is kind of a catch-22 situation. The pumps run off of our recycled water. We use our own water in-house for things like hose bibs, seal water. These are the pumps that keep the system running. So if for any reason they're shut down, then you're not making the water that you need to provide seal water to the pump that needs to make the water. Sounds a little confusing, but it's kind of a loop there. So if we don't have water to the pumps can't run to make more water. So we're proposing this system. Number six is some additional piping to relieve a couple of conflicts that were found in the yard, and it also allows us to fill the sludge holding tanks independently instead of always being a dual system. And then 7 and 8 are no-cost items related to time delays from Edison and inclement weather, and they're just recognizing those. And that's what I've got there for item number 13, change order number 21. If council has any questions, I'll be happy to ask.
Thank you very much, Mr. Van Bell. Nicole, do we have any public comment on this item?
I have no comments. Carrie, do we have anyone on the line?
No callers on the line.
Okay, so with that, I will open it up for council discussion.
Mayor, I'll move for approval of change order number 21 for the wastewater treatment plant upgrade expansion in the amount not to exceed $213,164.76.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem White?
Yes.
Mayor Lara?
Yes. That brings us to action item 14, the approval of city attorney invoices. Mr. Pinckney.
And I am recusing myself on this item, given that it affects my law firm.
All right. Nicole, do we have any public comment on this item?
No, sir. Carrie, do we have anyone on the line?
No callers on the line.
I'll open it up for council discussion if there's any questions and or a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve invoices in the amount of $96,635.73.
I'll second.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem White?
Yes.
Mayor Lara?
Yes. And wait for Mr. Pinckney to come back in. Okay, that brings us to legislative updates and discussion. Ms. Christina Taylor.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Brief update for you this evening. The last day for the governor to sign bills into law was October 10th. The legislature will reconvene again not until January 3rd of 2022. And all the bills that have been signed into law will take effect on January 1 of 2022. I wanted to highlight 3 additional bills that have not previously been discussed, which were signed into law prior to that October 10th deadline. The first one is AB 68, which is an annual statewide housing plan bill, and it requires the State Department of Housing and Community Development to publish a statewide housing plan, which provides an analysis and a summary of conditions throughout the state in each jurisdiction, talking about housing type, size, gross rent, property values, et cetera, to the extent that's available. And then the condition of the housing stock, the distribution of households by gross income size, ethnic characters of the areas, and things like that. It also goes into requiring an analysis of state and local housing and building codes and any enforcement activities that have taken place, along with an identification of governmental and non-governmental constraints pertaining to both existing and future housing stock. I do anticipate that we will see some trickle-down effect through the planning and possibly building and safety departments and code enforcement departments as a result of this. And so we are going to watch it as it takes effect in January and see what housing and community development guidelines come out of that and what they're going to require from each jurisdiction in our current annual reports that we provide to them each year by April. The next bill is AB 571. This has to do with affordable housing impact fees. And long story short with this is AB 571 prohibits affordable housing impact fees, including inclusionary zoning fees and in lieu fees, from being imposed on a housing development's affordable units. Good thing for the city of Beaumont is we don't have any inclusionary zoning fees or in lieu fees at this time for specific to affordable housing. However, anticipate some of the housing impact fees that we do have could be affected by this. So again, as we start to see this bill take effect and materialize, we'll be looking to see how jurisdictions are implementing this and how the state's looking at it. And then the last one for this evening is AB 602. This also deals with fees, and it requires that any local agency which conducts an impact fee nexus study has to, prior to the adoption of any fee, prepare a nexus study. The study has to identify the existing level of service for the public facility, identify the proposed new level of service, and include an explanation of why the new level of service is necessary. It also requires that a fee that's levied or imposed on a housing development after July 1, 2022, not January, but July, must be proportionate to the square footage of whatever unit is proposed. If a jurisdiction decides to base a fee not on square footage, then the jurisdiction is required to identify and show how square footage was not appropriate and how the metric that was chosen is appropriate. So again, we'll be looking to see what effect, if any, this has on the city of Beaumont, and any additional impact fees that we would be looking to update or modify or impose would then have to comply with this AB 602. That concludes my report for this evening. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Christina.
Mayor, I have a question for Christina.
Yes.
I have it. Ms. Taylor, are you familiar with the ACA 7 movement?
I am not.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Is it?
That's
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Finn?
Yeah, I don't know what to call it. I'm going to call it the lawnmower bill. I read something in the paper an email notification that there was a new law that was passed. It was restricting off-road engines, and They focused on lawnmowers, but I interpret that being, well, if it's a lawnmower, then it's a weed eater, and if it's a weed eater, it's a trimmer, and if it's a trimmer, it might be a generator, and so forth. Do you have any information how the city might be impacted by that, since we do a lot of landscaping maintenance throughout the city? Because I understand the way that is there will be no new equipment of that type to be sold in California after 2024.
That is correct. And it's actually on my list of things that I'm still looking through. I think the impacts are going to be wide ranging. So it's going to affect our citizens as well as how we do business here with the city. So, and there's a lot of, I guess, it's pretty extensive, but there are some, I guess, I don't know if you want to call them steps or levels to how it's gonna work. So I'm still trying to weed through and work with Townsend to figure out what kind of effect this is going to have on us. And then I guess the next question is going to be, is this going to remain as an unfunded state mandate, or are we going to see something following this that's going to help offset the cost of all of the expense that will be to local government over the next 3 to 4 years while this is being implemented?
Okay, and then just for the audience clarification, that would be to replace that with battery powered or electrical powered, items, and so forth. And so I can just imagine a crew out there all day long, and how many batteries would they need in all new equipment to be able to get their job done. And that's just going to add additional expense to everything. So I appreciate your looking into that, and I'd be looking forward to hearing an update from you in the future. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Christina, on AB 602, when talking about having fees go to based on square footage, and I know you don't have a lot of detailed information, but for example, like on the MSHCP fee that can be done by project area, would that then go back to just doing square footage of the buildings that are proposed within that development project, or?
So I read this in a more general sense, in that if because MSHCP has their own nexus study. So within that nexus study, if they determine they want to use something other than square footage, they could justify it in that nexus study, and then it would, if the state found it acceptable, then it could be used. It could be used without having to revert back to square footage. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So what it sounds like, though, is it's going to require folks to go back through and do a new nexus study, perhaps?
It doesn't specifically say this would be for anything. It would be for anything that takes effect or that's done after the new year. So I think for right now, the nexus study that was just done for both MSHCP and I think we've had a couple others that have come through. They're already approved and done, so it's not going to require retroactive revision. But in the next nexus studies that would be done, we'd be looking then at following these guidelines.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? Okay, I think we're good, Christine. Thank you. That brings us to the Economic Development Update.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The Economic Development Committee did meet last Wednesday, and the major topic of discussion was economic development tools and incentives. So staff went through the different resources that we have available and detailed those different components in order to educate the EDC on what tools we currently have available. The one I do want to highlight is the custom cell phone business analysis, and that's for any business within the city. If they reach out to the city, we will provide them a custom analysis, which allows us to track customer cell phones into an area, typically their business and their parking lot, in order to determine where those customers come from, what times of day, what days of the week they go to that business, and then we actually can track where they came from and where they go after. So if that interests you, or you know any businesses that are interested in that service, please have them contact the city, and we'd be more than happy to prepare a report for them. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Is that Kyle? Is that information on our website as well?
I believe it is. I will go ahead and take note and double check. And if it's not on our website, I'll go ahead and get it up there tomorrow or the next day.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from council for Mr. Warszewski? No. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
Brings us to the city treasurer's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and
in
council.
person.
Yes, nice to be here tonight
Yes,
to
sir.
see you all.
Nice to have you here.
I know you're all waiting with bated breath to get our update on our subcommittee activity, but, the old but word, we did not meet last week because it was a holiday. And Indigenous Day, Columbus, the old Columbus Day, so we did not have a meeting, so you will have to wait another month for that. Otherwise, I have no report, Mayor.
All right, sir. We will be waiting with bated breath and hope to see you again. Brings us to city clerk report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Quickly, the Public Records Request Monthly Report for September. We had a total of 27 public record requests. All 27 were completed. Thank you, Nicole. And the total time was 12.25 hours. That's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Millman. And brings us to our city attorney report.
So I gave my report on the status of litigation at the last meeting, and I will give a report at the next meeting on November 2nd.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pinckney. We are now to the city manager report. The one and only Mr. Todd Parton.
I know everybody's thankful about that one and only thing. I think one thing that's important to highlight in our community is we have a fantastic police force. And I'm very proud that our department is conducting their first ever Citizens Police Academy. So we've got nearly 30 Beaumont residents that are partaking of that opportunity. And they're engaging with the department. They are learning why you get pulled over. Why does an officer ask you for your ID, when you're the person who initiated a call? Why do officers stand certain ways or do certain things? So they learn the theory of it, and they have the opportunity to hear from the officers what they're going through in the field and to see it. So it's pretty amazing. And the objective is to help the community understand how a large portion of their revenues are being spent, for the community, what they're getting for that, but also creates advocates in the community for law enforcement, which is important as we go about that work. The value and the importance of what that department does for us was highlighted by the events that happened last week with the what ultimately turned into an attempted murder of a police officer in Banning, which our department jumped into helping. Joined Riverside Sheriff's Office as well as the City of Palm Springs to address that imminent threat to public safety. There was no hesitation. They jumped in. They did what they needed to do. So the training, the bravery, the care for this community came through, and not just for Beaumont, for the entire community of the pass and for the state of California. So. I just want to start my comments off tonight by thanking all of our officers and chief, and really just kind of just commenting in the community how much value and how important that department is for everything that we do every day. So we are going to be presenting to council based on city council request, I think at our last meeting on future agenda items, to discuss in particularly fine detail what we're looking at with regard to the Rangel and Stewart Park projects. So November 2nd, we'll be doing a detailed update for you guys. One of the things that we're starting to run into is construction prices are skyrocketing right now. And in some of the items, some of the preliminary estimates for some of our park improvements are 3 to 4 times higher than what we were looking at. So there's probably some decisions we're going to have to talk to council about in terms of what decisions to make, what things to defer potentially, or do you want to put more money into some of these things? So I know we had discussed a concern about budgets in the past on our project budgets, but it's not really that. It's really things kind of out of our control that are driving it. So labor shortages, the commodity prices that we saw that are reflecting in the diffs, those kinds of things are driving some significant pricing for us. We are moving forward, and our plan is to have the splash pad at Stewart Park ready and ready for installation coming up, heading into this next summer. And understanding that we may not be able to get everything done, we want to manage the park project in a way that we make the park usable. And so people can get out, they can use it. Mayor Laura and Mayor Pro Tem White and I met with some representatives of the Cherry Festival and some concerns they had about, are they going to be able to do their event in Stewart Park? So we talked about some strategies and some things we can do to try to help that if they choose to locate the project in Stewart Park coming forward. So we're working through some of those issues. Rangel Park, we have engineering and we have electric consultants as well as landscape architects that are working through plans. And again, there's some questions with regard to some of the plans that we had. And maybe this needs to do some alternative types of improvements within the park. Primary objective on Rangel Park is the musical lighting. It's the field upgrades and taking care of the ball field. That's the number one objective. So question is, what do we do with the splash pad? Do we do playscapes instead? Looking at some various factors like that. Some global things in the CIP with the cost of steel. We had programmed in to put steel shade structures over playscapes throughout the community. Do we want to look at doing the fabric playscapes instead? So less expensive, maybe more readily available, something we can get done faster and less expensive. So there's some things like that serve some additional discussions that we need to try to work through and address. So we'll be happy to present all that to you moving forward. And I guess the final thing is I've been monitoring the Houston Astros, and it's very clear that they no longer can read signs, the pitching signs, because they're not hitting anything anymore. So I think you'll be happy to know that they are no longer cheating as much as they once did. So that concludes my staff report.
Thank you. Real quick, on the citizen, what was it? I'm sorry.
The Citizens Police Academy.
Yes, I believe Mayor Pro Tem White was going to volunteer for the taser demonstration. I just wanted to put that out there for you, Chief, so you've got to volunteer for that demonstration.
K9 was last night.
Oh, that was going to be the one I was going to volunteer for if Mayor Pro Tem did the taser, so.
I think he wanted to do pepper spray too. And
Pepper
batons,
spray.
I think baton was in there as well.
Tacos with the pepper spray or no?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Okay. Thank you very much. And that brings us to future agenda items. Seeing none, I guess at this point, or?
Just a quick thing to consider, if you would.
Be happy to.
In light of, I don't want to call it an ethical review or ethical policy, but in light of some of the things that happened recently with the use of people's titles in comments to other agencies and so forth, I'm thinking maybe we ought to think about doing a discussion on, what's appropriate and what's not appropriate for a lot of our different committees that we have. We've been doing a great job, I think, in the last discussion we had with the letter to the water agency that Councilmember Finn and Mayor Pro Tem White talked about, which was perfect,
Right.
because it was exactly professional and ethical, and I really approved the way they did that. However, looking at where the possibility of some of our other committees and so forth could kind of misuse their titles and so forth, I'm wondering if we might want to consider having some sort of a small policy just for direction so that members of our committees know when it's appropriate to do that. So,
Okay.
So without going into an overall arching type of policy. So something to consider, think about, see how far we want to go with that and so forth. And it wouldn't be bad to put it on paper for council anyway, for future council members as well.
Okay.
But I just wanted to throw that out there as a possibility and compliment Councilmember Finn and Mayor Pro Tem White, because I think that was the exact approach that should be taken, and use that as a model moving forward. So, thank you,
It
Mayor.
was. Thank you. And so with that, we'll go to council reports. How about Councilmember Martinez? You want to go ahead and
Oh, okay, I'll keep
stay
going.
with it?
So the only thing I had to report is that I've been appointed to a working group by Cal Cities to work on the Assembly Constitutional Amendment 7 that's being proposed, ACA 7. And they took members of the Housing Committee and the Environmental Quality Committee. And our job is to meet. We have 3 meetings so far, and our job is to work on wording that we can present to the Cal Cities Executive Board on a possible position that Cal Cities can take on the ACA 7. So what I'd like to do, and I'd like clarification from Mr. Pinckney, is what I would like to do is, and we can do it 2 ways depending on what's more appropriate. We can either have council members submit just brief comments to the city clerk without name so that I can use as reference as I talk on the working group, or if we need to agendize it, we can do that. The reason I asked for number 1 is because our first committee meeting's next week. But I can always go in with my thoughts and hear where they're going and then report back on the agenda item if we do that. And this way you can chime in with your discussion if that's more appropriate. So I'm not sure if it's better to have an agenda to discuss openly with your comments so I can take those and incorporate that in the committee working group, or is it okay to just submit general comments to the clerk that I can use as we discuss the ACA 7?
I think it'd be more appropriate to have it as an agendized item if you're going to get direction from the group as a whole to avoid even the appearance of having a meeting of the council outside of a properly noticed meeting.
So with that, I would request that we put on the agenda item for our next meeting.
Okay.
And that'll be in time for the last 2 meetings at least, so I can incorporate council members' opinions.
Okay.
And so.
Thank
Okay,
you, Councilman.
and that's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Those endangered species of the month?
No, it was last time. See, you have to wait
All right.
another one. And if you want to look that up, that's ACA 7 for the meanwhile.
What is that again?
That's the ACA 7, the Assembly Constitutional Amendment 7. Has to do with the land use and municipal affairs and local government and so forth.
Mayor, I will say that Chargers fans got even more scarce after last week.
He keeps going.
I don't know. He's got them.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And so we'll go to, how about Councilmember Finn?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I attended the Transportation Now meeting on the 7th. There were just some general updates that were provided by each participant. They did vote to continue to meet virtually via Zoom. And the next meeting will be in November, and it'll be a countywide transit report by RCTC, so I'm looking forward to that. I did attend the San Gregorio Pass Water Agency's meeting virtually. They are meeting virtually as well. They did increase the number of paid meetings from 5 to 10. It was a 6-to-1 vote. There was only one dissenting member, and that was Director Dr. Ball. I'm a little disappointed in that, knowing that I have, that's where my political roots came from. But what was originally proposed or thrown out there was that maybe they would do a trial run with a couple extra meetings, and it was talked about initially. But they went straight to a 10-meeting proposal, and then it was voted 6-to-1. There was a large amount of public comments, I think 40 overall, and I think at least 35 were opposed. And so the public came out, so I appreciate that, and so forth. I just hope it's handled responsibly. So that's all I have to report for this evening.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Finn. Councilmember Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. This will be a quick report. Actually, on the banning state of the city, we attended that. And with the other council, we miss, Councilman Martinez. We miss you. So other than that, they did excellent, presentations. I'll give them a credit on that. Mayor Colleen, did excellent presentations on that. And overall, it's nice to see other, they call it dignitaries, so actually call it just like a friend to me. I mean, because since I get involved in here, I've been talking to them, So that's all I have, Mayor. I mean, I enjoyed that, your company and your being with you guys. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mayor Pro Tem White.
Thank you. I went to support Mayor Lara in his pumpkin carving,
Yes.
pumpkin decorating booth at the Monster Mash, and that was, boy, it looked, we were there the first hour, and it looked packed.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it continued that high level of attendance throughout. I do, as I mentioned earlier, have some good news from RCTC. The 2022 STIP Target Share Programming Recommendation for Western Riverside County had 2 projects on there, and the first project that was listed was the Highland Springs Interchange, and that was for an amount of $14.6 million. That money will, if it's approved, this is still just sort of an application process. If it's approved, it looks like the timelines is that the money will meet our timeline of fiscal year 25, 26, and 26, 27 for construction. It's 14.6 million that we were going to have to find a way to help fund that. I think this is a really good example of projects. They continue to tell us from the county that projects need to be ready to go when these fundings come out, and I want to commend the staff of both Banning and Beaumont for working to put this together to be in a position. The other project was a Temescal Canyon road widening in the El Cerrito area, and that was so those were the only 2 projects that were able to make it under the 27 million budgeted amount or the target that we're going for. So I think it's a good example of 2 cities working together and coming up with a project and a plan that is well received by the rest of the county. And there was a lot of comments from the other RCTC members that it was really good to see projects that benefit all parts of Riverside County and not just the normal parts that we're used to hearing so much about. So anyways, that was really good news. And I think that's all I had.
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem White. I've got a few things here. I'll try to be quick. Attended the Wrcog Administration and Finance Committee. One of the things that I just want council to know is that they are updating their bylaws, trying to keep those updated, going around, which is really good. Also, they approved an Inland Regional Energy Network, or IREN, activity. RENs are funded by California utility ratepayers through a public goods charge levied on the regular bills by such agencies as Edison and SoCal Gas. So they take that money and they'll use it for to provide technical assistance to participating agencies to support facility improvements designed to reduce energy consumption. They'll put on classes for Title 24 classes regarding energy usage. I just want council to know when this came before the committee, at this point in time, it is a good program, but I voted against it only because at this point in time with Wrcog, I didn't feel it was appropriate at this time because it is going to require additional employees. And typically when money runs out, or if this is not funded through its in perpetuity, employees will be hired and then either let go or they'll be brought in. And the concern that I had was the unfunded liabilities that this creates for an agency as small as that one. So I just wanted to let council know what I did on that. So that was it for the meeting. I do appreciate Mayor Pro Tem White's assistance at the Monster Mash. It was very busy. I was able to judge a costume contest. It was very difficult to do. I would encourage all council members to be a part of that. But it was a lot of fun. So I do want to have, I would like to thank the Parks and Rec staff for putting on such a great program. It was a lot of fun. Also want to thank Bruce Muro and the Interact staff. Always at our city events, always there to help. Great group of kids. The Boy Scouts, Pack 322, I'd also like to thank for their work in the snack bar. We also had Beaumont Library assisting us, as well as AP Rentals, which is another business that is always assisting us, always assisting the Park and Rec group. And so it was a lot of fun. We decorated a lot of pumpkins, so it was a bigger hit than I had anticipated for sure. Also, just want to congratulate Mayor Wallace on her State of the City. It was very well done. And again, I just want to reiterate special thanks to our men and women in the police department and the efforts that they went through last week, always working to keep our community safe and stepping up and taking care of us. So thank you for that, Chief. With that, I will adjourn the meeting at 7:43 p.m. Yeah.
Wow.